Okay folks, today we're going to run through how to replace your frame rail with standard box steel. This is something I trialed here going back a couple of months ago, and it was really successful. I couldn't believe how easy it was and how natural it looks in the car. The reason I went with box steel is for extra strength. It's something I could just go up the road and buy from my local steel suppliers. It also allows me to contour in this profile. I've seen a lot of the frame rails that were kind of out there were just kind of flat floored, or the ones that were contoured like this were quite expensive. So I just wanted to see if it was possible to just basically put in, I think it's 70 by 70 or 75 by 75 mil box. I'll confirm that in a second. So it gives a very natural kind of look to it. This is going to be done up to a standard that here in Ireland will pass an engineer's test. It'll be fully welded all the way along, so I'll be doing it in multiple stitches just to complete that. And it just kind of joins up here quite nicely with the top end here. I need to redo here again, which I'm going to do at a later stage, just to make sure it's fully welded in all the way. But no, it's quite an enjoyable process. So I'm going to apply it here, because you can see that this frame rail is badly dinged up all the way. It looks horrible to look at aesthetically, and I know it's the bottom side of a car, but it is something that would bug me if I knew it was there. And then obviously back here then we have a lot of corrosion that's penetrated not just through the frame rail but up into the floor as well. So we're just going to go through the steps of getting the box section shaped up so it kind of fits nicely into this profile. And it's strong and cheap as hell, so let's give it a shot. Let's go with it. So the first thing I'm going to do is level off this top plate. So this little fella is in the way straight away, so I just drilled out the two spot welds. Hopefully it comes off fairly easy, or not. With my trusty weird claw hammer. Okay, so I started off by bolting or not, just clamping our box section onto our frame rail. You can see all the gaps and how uneven it is all the way, how manky it is. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to use a little template, and we're just basically going to start etching all of this profile down to a particular depth all the way, and likewise on the other side. And what that will do is allow us to trim off the rotten section of the frame rail and drop this down, and then afterwards then we can contour in this angle that you can see here, and that'll kind of sit snug in tight to all along here. When this is all off as well, we can actually examine the inside for corrosion all the way around. So let's get contouring. How can I record when you're making all the noise, huh? You're barking at everything. You're barking at everything. Be like him, nice and quiet. Oh, you want to get me? Oh, yes. Right, first contour done. So I kind of picked the couple of highest points. I think they're in around 25 mil, and just transferred that up there, and then just keep repeating it the whole way along. Hope you can see it there. So essentially that contour with that height there matching this height here, and likewise there to there, and then just follow that contour all the way along. That maintains that this surface is parallel to that surface there. And then when I get out to the end, I just taper away following that contour, and from this point forward then there'll be a split here, and it'll be bent down here to match that profile over here. So I'll just repeat on the same on the other side. Now, here we go. And now for the fun bit, where I use a lot of grinding discs. So I'm just going to work my way up along it now and just cut out this line all the way, flip it over, do the same again. This is our contour profile. I kind of lost wind of myself a few times where I thought I was on one side of the waistline but it was on the other, but they'll be fine, they'll weld up nicely. Contour this one out fairly okay. So what we need to do next now is to remove the lower section of this rail, just basically leaving just a little overlap, a little lip, so that I can get the location of the new one on top of it. So let's cut this one off and see how much rot is underneath it. Datsuns love to hide rot in places you don't want to see them. Fingers crossed. And this is why you don't patch your frame rails. So, lovely steel from the outside. A few little indents for what looks like surface rust. And then we can see the back here where it's protruding through, but when you look at the other side, that's solid rust. So essentially, moisture was able to come down and just rest on the inside of this rail, slowly but surely corrode it. It had no way to ventilate itself and just obviously rolled to the back and was most prominent here. As for the floor is actually fairly okay. So you can see here that, as expected, we had a little bit of corrosion at the back. And most of this is surface. It's just at the very, very back here where the real issue is. So we'll be sectioning it out here and make it a new section for the frame rail to mount onto. And we need to really get up in here and see what's going on into this area, because we don't want to just patch up and cover up stuff here. We need to treat it now. Like with the other side, we gained access up inside here, and we gave ourselves the ability to treat this rust preventative zinc coat and then body sealer on the inside of that, and we'll do the same here. Okay, I removed off a little bit more here. You can see there's quite a bit of surface corrosion here. Now it was bad on the bottom side of the plate, as you can see here, so it's like whatever settled on the bottom of the rail has kind of corroded through, but everything else is fairly okay. I bore scoped from here all the way back up here, and everything's fine except for just there. It's very similar kind of surface finish to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean all of this off, clean in here as much as possible, and then I'm just going to use a rust inhibitor, try and penetrate all of this area. I'll probably go up the whole way up the rail as well, just to have it in there. It's got no harm at all. And what I'll do is I'll clean off this to see if there's any kind of porous spots, but as far as I can see, this is perfect. Maybe I might cut away this section here and just have a proper view of what's underneath there, just so if we do treat it, that we're treating both sides. I want to try and leave as much of this original plate here as possible, so I'll clean the inside of that and treat that. And on the other side, I did have to remove this plate because the corrosion was suspected to go up there. Turns out it wasn't after all. I bore scoped this. Once again, it seems to be fine. It's just a little bit of surface corrosion down here. So once again, rust inhibitor. If I have to bore a hole here and spray on the inside, I'll do it. But other than that, it's actually not that bad. Okay, it's actually all surface rust, which is really, really good news. I'll still do a little bit of investigating underneath here before I make a final decision on that, but everything is just cleaning up nicely. There is barely any pitting. I might remove a little bit more of this edge. We'll see how things go, but I'm trying to keep as much of that as possible. Once again, there is no pitting. There's no real kind of follow through with any rust in here. I'm very, very happy with it. It's very solid. And as I said, I've bore scoped everything inside, and that's all very solid. So I think it's just going to be a little bit of treatment. So what we're going to do now is we're going to mock up our new rail, which that isn't it. That's it there. And I'm just going to see how it fits. So this is attempt number 1. Let's see. I think I remember the last time when I did this, I had to tap down these a bit narrower to get it to fit on, but shall we try first go. First go, it's not bad. On the one side. I think I need to rotate it up a little bit higher for myself. I might stick on a bit of hair protection because this hurts a little bit. Further here, but at least now I know the length is roughly in position. Not bad for a first go. So this is the tricky bit now. So we can't tap this down any further to confirm how snug it is until we get that fella down like this fella. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer the measurements, or the distance I suppose, of that line down to here, and then we're going to take a little cut and start knocking this fella down to match that angle. Luckily enough I have that one to work from, so we're not doing too bad. And then when that's down, we can just get a quick tack, and then we're going to start contouring this fella here to match the contour of here. Something similar that you see up here. What I need to do here is, as I mentioned before, this needs to be welded. I just tacked the section, but chatting to the engineer there, he wants to see all the welds, so we're going to clean this off and give it a complete weld up. Slowly but surely getting there. Okay, I'm using this highly scientific tool here. It's essentially 2 bits of timber screwed together to get the angle of this, because I want to have this exactly for the other side. So the profile plate, I kind of trimmed away 2 little cuts either side, bent it down, and wanted to mimic the angle here, which we've done. Okay, so there's a little gap to hold it down because I wanted to have a good deep weld that penetrates through the plate from both sides. That way it's just, there's no risk of you know, not penetrating deep enough into the cut. Probably gone a little bit overboard, but I'll fill that, it's not an issue. So our angle is spot on. Okay, so do this with one hand and holding the camera. It's a little bit difficult, but essentially what we're going to do now is we're going to use our little marker that we put in here earlier, line it up, and then draw up levels off this edge here and trim a kind of a contour around that will match in with that. Okay, so it doesn't need to be 100%, but we want to kind of just follow it close enough to this contour so we can mimic what's on the other side. And then we're going to drill holes here and spot weld it through on each side. That's why I wanted to leave quite a lot of material there just for strength. And then we're going to be sealing it completely with weld all the way around. The SQIs have requested that this is actually one continuous weld all the way. Makes sense. You don't want it given away at any kind of one weak spot because we were stitching it. So now I just need to start drawing up the levels up here, and then I'll cut it. Probably the next scene, hopefully, will be me having cut it right and not having started all over again. Fingers crossed. So here's our first fit. Our lines are pretty much spot on. Just here, I gotta sit down a bit more. There's a little bit of flex in it because it's kind of caught underneath here, which is fine. You can see my first go to cut. Now, I want this sitting back away from the edge because I want to be able to catch the edge of this plate with a weld, but I'm butted tight against it, which not bad for a first go, to be honest. And then I have an overhang of the tab underneath here because that's going to be pressed in tight, and it's going to be spot welded and seam welded all the way around. So for the first pass, not too bad. I'm going to straighten the car up. I'll probably take this back here below and back further here all the way around, and that should give me clearance for a weld. But quite pleased so far. And then after that, then we can start kind of tapping it in and see how snug it fits. Fit number one. Let's see. I reckon the welds are catching here. Just to persuade it. Something you'd see more often on bricklayers' hands, but not too bad though. Okay, so on the inside here, there's a little bit of a seam weld. I kind of was meant to actually leave that on the bottom, so it's only interfering with this little small area here, so not too bad. So that was kind of catching. It's probably catching here, so what wasn't allowed to press down. Let's see. Something to give that thing. Slow. So, pretty good all the way around here. We've got a little gap the whole way. Probably no harm. It allows the weld to penetrate in as well as onto these two plates. We're good all the way along here. There might be a couple of contact points that we can take back to allow it to sit more snug. We've got our two angles matching up nicely. And we have our plate come in. Yep, pretty parallel. So making good contact here, which we wanted. We created a bit of a gap all the way around here, so it needs a little press in there, and then this has to be split back here and tabbed in. Had to do that on the far side as well. It just basically makes the end of the rail hug in on top of the original rail, giving good contact points. So we'll bore holes all the way along here, and likewise on the far side. Allows for spot welding along this zone, and then we're going for one continuous weld all the way around. Should be strong. Obviously, we'll be tacking the hell out of it before we go near any of that. You can see here, it could probably sit down a little bit tighter, but I think we need to clean up the corner first before we can do that. But not bad for a first pass. We have a rail that can be used, and as you can see back there, the back is kind of kicked up a little bit. So yeah, just a few points need to be kind of flattened out, just so that I can actually sit down. You don't want to have a twist in this, you know. Something to give that thing. So just before I take this off, I have kind of marked out a couple of zones that are kind of making contact before anything else. This will allow me to sit the plate in further, likewise here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a nip out of this and start folding that guy in. Don't mind my gloves. That's what happens when you don't use welding gloves. when you're welding. So essentially that's going to get kinked in to follow this. Now, not too sure if this side's going to be the same. I think we might be okay on this side, but the other side had a very kind of offset contour. That side was higher than that side, so when I had to bend this down, I had to follow this kind of contour. I think this side is the same, so not the same as each other, so it's not as big an issue. So we're going to take that off, grind it, cut it, bend it, and see how we line up. Okay, we've got that nipped away and folded in. It's now following a nice little contour. It's sticking back further on this plate. I might tap it in a little bit further just to have it more like what we see up here. But it's pretty healthy. Nice little gap there to fill in our weld. Our contours are quite good, so we've got a nice little divot there where we can start filling in our weld all the way along. That presses in quite well. Obviously overshot my cuts here a little bit, so we can fill them in, that's not an issue. And then we'll come up here. You can seam weld all the way around that, so we're making good contact with the plate. And as I said before, then we'll do multiple spots here where we can do spot weld, just to make sure that it's kind of catching the plate flat on as opposed to just on the edge. And likewise with down underneath here, she is nicely profiled in. So it's actually good to go now. So it's about 2 hours work, and kind of enjoyable. It's nice just kind of forming one piece of metal in around the other without too much brute force. And instead of being a 1 mil profile for the frame rails, we now have 3. So we have a little bit of extra weight, but on the 280 it's not too much of an issue. If anything, it's going to give a bit more rigidity, probably a little bit safer in a crash, all going well. So I think it's good all around. So the next job now is, now that I have that exposed, I need to see how much damage is on this plate here, just from the rust. I can see that's kind of gone underneath here, so we need to do a bit of investigating, a bit of tearing back. A lot of this will be visible from the other side, but I'll have to remove the seat bracket that goes across on the inside here. So we'll take this off, put it to one side, and we'll start cutting away rust. Deadly. Okay, I'm just spending the last 45 minutes chipping away all of this noise deadener. That's this tarry kind of stuff. So now I've kind of got a full exposure, full view of the condition of the floor. And you know what? Here, it's not bad. A tiny bit of surface rust. A couple of tiny spots here that need a bit of attention, but we can fix that. Everywhere else up there is good. Back here, a lot of surface, but it's back in here that I need to kind of really check out. So I think for me to do this properly, I need to drill out this frame rail, or this seat rail, and have a look underneath it. If any kind of patchwork has to be done underneath there, at least I can get a proper run at it, and then this can be spot welded back down to position again. So, okay, so got all the chippings, looks pretty good. A lot of this might angle grind off, and I suppose I just want to kind of get the wire brush in on this rust to see how deep it is. I know it's penetrated at a few points, kind of. If you look at it there, a little bit. The rest is actually very solid, so I just want to basically hit it with the brush now to see how it looks. Alright, just give it a quick rub with the brush for a couple of minutes, and we can see that we're very solid patch here. And then my suspicion is just at that joint there. You can see one hole here, but I think from the other side you can see a little bit more kind of texture to it. So I do want to take this fab. So I'll bore through on each of these spot welds. Probably replace a section, let's say this plate here, just back to a section underneath. We'll probably do a lap joint because it's nice and hidden there, and weld it continuously across the whole way. And then just keep hitting this with the brush until we knock back all these small bits of sound deadener. Looks like she got a belt up here, so I'm going to bang that back down again. And we'll just basically treat this joint here. It looks fairly okay, it's just a little bit of moisture building up. I had a suspicion due to the other side that the air conditioning was possibly having a bit of moisture dripping out of it. And it was dripping down here and here, predominantly on that side. As you can see, there's a bit of patchwork there. This side is not doing too bad. But yeah, I'm gonna give up for the night. Come back and visit this later in the week and hopefully get this welded up and ready for the engineering inspection. Alright guys, thanks for watching the video. There's more to come. Obviously we're going to go next here and treat the rusty section down below here and then get our frame rail fitted back on. But I've got more videos coming up then in relation to converting this from a left-hand drive to a right-hand drive. It was an automatic, it's going to go manual, it's going to get a different engine put into it. Not what you'd normally see into it, but it's still honouring the 6 cylinders. It's got a turbo, it's got another turbo. So yeah, really looking forward to bringing this project to the next stage. If you want to try and guess what kind of engine's going into it, just throw it into the comments. Any kind of likes or subscribes, guys, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.